When I was tracking my Mazda RX-8 last summer, I was experiencing some brake fade. And I made an under tray that should help with the front brakes and cooling, but I decided I should upgrade the brake rotors. Now the stock rotors are better than most of the cheap stuff out there, but after some research I came across these, and I believe these are some of the best rotors that we can get for the money for this car. These are StopTech Sport rotors, and I'm pretty sure they're going to be a great addition to this car and should help me a lot on track. But before we go and install these on the car, let's understand why brake fade occurs in the first place. Brake fade occurs when you are braking very hard and very often, like on track. The brake pads are squeezing the rotors and generate a ton of friction, creating tons of heat. This heat causes the material of the brake pads to start degrading, making braking less effective. In some cases, a brake rotor made of cheap material could warp when it gets very hot, causing lots of other problems. Vented and slatted rotors allow for more surface area to disperse the heat from the friction of braking. They also allow for more flow of air, dispersing brake dust that could trap heat. Now this only relates to the temperature of the brake rotors and the pads themselves, but your brake fluid can get very hot, causing it to boil and trap air bubbles, which can also lead to brake fade. This is why I use Motul 600 brake fluid, rated for high temperatures on track. Now doing a brake job isn't all that difficult, but there is one unique tool you're gonna wanna have, and this is an impact screwdriver. There's little screws that hold on the brake disc to keep it, I guess, from coming off when you take your wheel off. You will strip those without one of these. Get a nice hard bit. Some of the cheaper ones have cheap bits that'll just yield on you. Get it in there and smash it with the hammer. Let's get this car jacked up, remove the wheel, and start taking off the brake rotors. So as you saw, that rear one wasn't too hard. So we moved up to the front and we're gonna do these guys. So right after getting the wheel up, I'm gonna run you through basically what's involved in removing one of these and replacing it with a new one. So I just realized that I don't actually have the screws. They're not on these brake rotors, which is kind of interesting. I don't know why I'm just noticing this now because I've had this wheel off multiple times. But yeah, so I won't actually need to use the impact driver. But you should get one because you're probably going to have those and they're impossible to remove without that. But let's get started. So I just took the wheel off. If it's the same as the back, it should be two 14s, 14 mils that hold this whole caliper to that bracket. So we'll go in there. These I can see are much beefier. They look like 17s, so we'll try that. On the rears, they are 14s. Yep, so these are 17s. 17 millimeter. And make sure we are in the unloose direction. You might be able to get them by hand. If not, plastic or rubber mallet works great. So we'll break the top one, feel the bottom one, make sure we're on. There we are. Right there. Broke both of those free, not too bad. I'm sure I've taken them off at some point. And should just undo them by hand and we'll pull the caliper right off. Boom, 2 bolts. Caliper should come right off. I had a little bit of trouble on the last one because of the lip on it, which is showing that they are worn. And we are having that same trouble. So you can see the caliper, or the rotor just wants to fall off. So I'm screwing on one of the lug nuts just to hold it in. Typically, you will not have it so the calipers just want to fall off. And what you want to do then is take a brass hammer if you plan on putting them back on. If not, just a sledge is fine. and just smack this outside. That'll loosen up all that rust and it'll come right out. Well, I shouldn't say right out, it takes a lot of smacks. But anyway, I'm gonna put that lug on now and try to wiggle this out. It is pretty tight, but it just looks like it's going. Okay, just like that. What I like to do is just throw that caliper back there on that control arm. Just like that, to make sure there's no pressure on the that brake line. These are the stainless steel braided brake lines I have on this car. You can hang them with a zip tie or a piece of paracord or anything, but this is what I like to do. So now I'll just take off this lug, and like I said, they usually don't come off this easily. This one, however, boom, right off, no screws, no nothing. Cool. Now we're gonna get the new one. Make sure you get the rotation right. This is the left side, so I'm using the left one. There are rotation with these slots on these slotted brake rotors. And what I like to do here is just take them out of the bag, put it down like this, and we're going to take some brake cleaner. This is just your standard brake clean CRC stuff. It's basically just acetone, so if you have that, that works too. Just spray them down. Nice heavy coating. Got to get all that old brake grease off. You don't want any of that on it. I use an entire can for 4 brake rotors, so that really shows you how much I'm putting through these. I'll do the back. Just line it up, stick it on. With these, you're going to want to line up where the screws go. I mean, I just did it out of habit, but I don't have screws, like I said. Boom, just like that. New rotor's on. Again, I'm just going to put a lug nut on. Now at this point, what you'd want to do is square it up, put your lug on, put like 3 lugs on, and attach a dial gauge and make sure your run out it's got to be less than 4 thou. So you can attach a dial gauge just right up here, magnetic thing, and just put the dial on there, spin it through. Make sure your run out's in spec, which is less than 4 thou. I already did that on these rotors before I got out here, so I'm not doing it right here to show you, but you can just look up how to like check the spec of your run out on your brake rotors, and you'll get a pretty good idea of what you need to do. So now that that's back on, we will grab our brake rotor, or our brake caliper, which is this guy, and my brake pad just fell out. These are Hawk HP Plus, I believe. Great for track, autocross. I've got tons of life in them, just one track day. And I basically only use this car for track and just weekend drives now. So I can get quite a bit of use out of them. So we will make sure the pads are towards the edges, and just wiggle that guy back on there, and then make sure it's in on the way. Line up our bolt holes, get our nice chonker bolts. Excuse me if this isn't a very good video. This is my first kind of raw try at something like this. As you know, I mostly just do the work and edit it later. That's mostly because I'm trying to figure out how to do it. So I don't really do how-to videos. I'm not really qualified to do that kind of stuff. There's plenty of stuff on the forums for that. Yeah, so that's about it. I just got to do it on the other side. Take me probably 20 minutes, and then we're good to go. So there it is, pretty easy. A full brake rotor change on a Mazda RX-8. Now next week, I'm taking this car to the track, and I will compare the temperatures from before all of the cooling mods to now the temperatures with all of these new cooling mods, and it's going to be a pretty cool video, so stay tuned for that. I'm going to go break in these new brake rotors.